Okay, we got a new episode of Real Raw Exchange Podcast. My name is Frank, and could I get my co-host to introduce themselves?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kyra.
All right,
Hey, this is Matt.
all right, all right,
Hi, I'm Lady D.
all right. So, the episode that we got for this week, and the topic that we got for this week is going to be we're going to talk about the new trend that is now popping out when it comes down to the trend that is being called the Great Resignation. Okay, the Great Resignation. Now, so COVID has put a monkey wrench in everything, you know, when it comes down to, people being able to see one another, when it comes down to, you being able to travel, when it comes down to you just being able to have, regular job out here, when it comes down to being out in these streets, right? So here's the thing that I find interesting about this coin term, that is now being used, the Great Resignation. Which, let's be real about it, all they're doing is biting off of the Great Depression, the Great Recession. That's all they do is just biting. From that, where there has been a great damper on people being able to actually keep their jobs, let alone them leaving their jobs or quitting, obviously when it comes down to the term of resignation or to resign, quitting their jobs because certain things are being affected when it comes down to them being able to work in an environment where they're being accepted no matter the fine details of what they are willing to do or not willing to do. Give an example, of course, this pandemic. The biggest issue that has been happening right now is people taking these vaccinations. Moderna, you know what I'm saying, Pfizer, Johnson. Well, Johnson, we already know is all fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody taking Johnson. That's probably a death sentence when it comes down to taking Johnson. But maybe Moderna, definitely when it comes down to Pfizer, because Pfizer has been the only FDA approved vaccination, which if you know what's going on when it comes down to the if I could say this, the monopoly or the gains as far as these companies being able to get profit from people using their vaccinations, right? Of course, Moderna and Johnson are kind of losing out on money because now Pfizer has only been the only one that has been FDA approved. So now Pfizer is going to be put at the forefront of being the one that everybody is now going to take because it's the only FDA approved COVID-19 vaccination. Nevertheless, getting back to the whole Great Resignation part. So you have companies, you have different organizations, you know, even, including myself with, me doing this military thing. I'm not going to say what particular branch I'm a part of, but doing this military thing, right? They are changing policy to make sure that ones who are going to work for said company or said organization, they have to take the vaccination. They have to go and get it. It's a must for them to get it. And if they don't, then, oh, you be out of a job. Or the thing is, it's like, oh, well, if you don't get it, then maybe for some organizations, your benefits are lowered to a certain extent, or, certain details when it comes down to things in your contract are now not going to be valid. You know, there are so many nuanced details in reference to, people that are being affected when it comes down to their profession in reference to now having to take the vaccination. I think one great example that I could put out there when it comes down to governmental jobs, when it comes down to working for the government. I work for the government. You know, there are policies that have been written within the past 2 months that now states if you don't take that vaccination, uh, you're going to have to find employment somewhere else. And that's just the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so. But obviously, we ain't talking about wrestling. Anyway, when it comes down to this whole resignation thing, right? So, one thing I find funny is in the media, they have this, coin term of the Great Resignation. But is it really people resigning from their jobs, or is it really them being forced to let their job go, or them being forced out, which essentially them being fired because they're now not following new policies that are being implemented? What y'all think? What y'all got?
So I think it's a combination kind of both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a kind it, because our generation was the generation that was taught about self care and mental health and
Mm,
taking care of self, and we realized over this last year and a half of being in the house, that jobs don't really care about us and our well being. And people are tired of it, of being treated less than,
yeah.
of being worked 60 plus hours a week and not having a livable wage. That too. People are realizing the wages we make it ain't livable.
Right.
And people are getting tired of watching people make six figures, do less work, and get paid more while we out here working ourselves to the bone. People are waking up and it's becoming a problem.
True. I think that when it comes down to most people now, realizing, I would put it in this perspective, being able to realize their worth, you know, what they should be gaining compared to what they're being given. I think, there is now kind of a resurgence in people being able to understand, okay, my worth is more than what you're offering me or what you're trying to force me to do, when it comes down to my livelihood. But then also you have the other dynamic of um, people legitimately not putting up with details in reference to the term DEI when it comes down to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That particular term that most companies, most organizations, needing to implement in reference to making their work environment the most inclusive, the most diverse, and equity is there when it comes down to a sense of fairness. You know, where if I thinking about diversity, what I'm saying, when I think about diversity, I also think about the opposite of that, which is exclusivity. You have diversity and exclusivity. Diversity is okay, no matter what background you come from, could be religious background, could be, racial background, ethnic background, you know what I'm saying, socioeconomic status, whatever it is. No matter what background you come from, you know, we got you. You can come in, you know, being able to be that organization or company that has a catch-all of, you know, no matter what background you come from, as long as your background doesn't have a mindset of, being, uh, pushing away or, only being exclusive to, one frame of thinking, completely, then we are willing to accept you into our organization, you know, where you have a lot of people that now it's kind of this thing of, during COVID, policies have changed not only because of COVID, but they have also changed because of demographics. You know, where certain policies for certain organizations changed when it came down to demographics probably like 5 months ago. But now within the past 2 months, now, or even as I say the past 3 months, maybe in past 4 months, now it's like you aren't going to be able to hold your job because now COVID is being used as a catch all for getting rid of certain demographics. But COVID is the shadow or is the cloak for getting rid of certain demographics. You know? What y'all think about that? What y'all think?
I feel like I feel like what you're saying has gone on in a lot of different instances for a long time. Like,
Facts.
of course, they put you in pockets to weed people out. That's just like when you got like a bad neighborhood and they like remodeling the apartments. What do? They kick all the bad people out. So when they move people back into the new apartments, those people don't come back.
Right.
So I mean, I get it, but it's for I think the people who are like quitting
Mm-hmm.
or exiting, they aren't. I'm not going to even say that. What I am going to say is most people can't afford to do that. If they have a job, they holding on to it because things are so uncertain. And it was some people who legit couldn't work because like childcare was shut down for a while.
Yeah.
Like, and even if you wanted to, you couldn't work because everybody was at home. So it when things started to open up, most people who can work, they not gonna be standing on their soapbox about their worth. I mean, you can talk about your worth, but you still need your job. So
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
like it's a balance, or it's a scale. It's a scale between two sides. On one side you have, your worth. You have your dignity. On the other side, where am I going to go get this paper? Where this cheese going to come from when it comes down to being able to pay, this rent, being able to, put food in his belly, being able to have clothes on his back, being able to roof overhead. You know,
right.
what do I need to do when it comes down to the reality of life? Compared to the morals, values, and creed that I follow in life. You know, no organization.
I had that in the car on the way home from work because as a nanny, parents don't care about your dignity, and you scoop your dignity up and put it in your trunk and drive it home. Like you need
Facts.
your job.
Yeah, and I believe that, you know, being in a capitalistic society, you know, I often I and I kind of, I'll put it like this: I kind of have a love hate relationship with capitalism. In addition to the fact that for me, and I'll put this out there. I don't mind. I don't consider myself to be a Republican, nor do I consider myself to be a Democrat. I would even more so say I have more libertarian views, you know, which is, complete contradiction, because how can I be, of libertarian views when I also work for the government? But if you don't really know the definition of libertarianism, or, the details of it, you got to look it up to be able to understand, you know, when it comes down to the aspect of self liberty, you know, being liberated from the need for a government to control every single detail or aspect of your life. When in essence, I am an asset for the government. Complete contradiction, complete dichotomy, you know, when it comes down to two sides. But I'm able to have that balance. Nevertheless, the detail of people being able to understand, what their worth is, what their value is, and, being within that, but also in turn still being able to make, a day's wage, you know, being able to, pay their bills, being able to do, what is necessary to take care of themselves and or take care of their family, you know, where you got a lot of people within, who were, I'll say were, in governmental positions, working for the government, that now either they have lost their job or they're about to lose their job, you know? But then also, and I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it out right now, which is, hilarious to me. So, uh, to give an example, when it comes down to me, uh, I'm in the military. I'm not gonna say what branch I'm a part of, but I'm in the military, right? U.S. Armed Forces. And, by December 1st, this is something I actually talked about before when it came down to, previous episodes. By December 1st, you are going to have many military personnel that have been in the military, right? That have chosen to not take the COVID vaccination. Because at first in the military, they were issuing out the Moderna vaccine. And then when Pfizer, was FDA approved, now they're issuing out Pfizer, right? By December 1st, or at least this is what they say, by December 1st, ones who have not taken any vaccination, when it comes down to a COVID vaccine that has been issued out, they will be pushed out of the military with an other than honorable discharge. Yes. This is mandated now. This is what's going to happen, quote unquote. Okay? But then I also need to say these two things, which is hilarious, completely hilarious to me. So, with them understanding the amount of numbers that they're going to end up losing out on, the number of assets, one of the biggest things that we have to think about when it comes down to the military lifestyle is understanding, the details of you're not a human being anymore. You're an asset for the government. Think about it in the scope of asset and liabilities when it comes down to finances. A liability is something that you're going to lose money from. An asset is something that is going to gain you money or gain you liquid over a period of time, which, can attain wealth, right? So if you now understand potentially a good portion of your numbers, you are about to lose within a certain period of time, and those numbers are needed to be able to maintain a certain number to help out when it comes down to evening out doing all jobs within said organization. You now need to push out incentives. And guess what incentives that they've already pushed out? One incentive, which is hilarious to me, is they have completely changed what is called the tattoo policy in my organization. So, at one time, you weren't allowed within a certain uniform, physical training uniform, as far as having one shirt and a pair of shorts on, and then some sneakers and some white socks, right? One of the uniforms that we actually wear. You weren't allowed to have tattoos visible in that uniform, meaning none on complete legs, no sleeves. You know what I'm saying? Nothing on the neck, nothing on the face, nothing on the head, so on and so forth. Now, they have completely changed that policy. What they did was, now they are saying not only enlisted personnel, but also officers are allowed to have tattoos anywhere on the body. You can only have one tattoo on the neck that is under the length of a quarter size, and one tattoo on your head that is under the length of a dime size. So what that means is tattoo parlors outside of military installations are making bank right now. In addition to them trying to push an incentive for retention.
But so that's the incentive to get your shot. Like, oh, I'm gonna let you get a tattoo, but take your shot.
And
That's the incentive.
that's the funny part. That's the funny part. Because a tattoo has nothing to do with getting a vaccination. But now, because obviously we got the, I call them the dummies. We got the dummies, in, whatever organizations, what may have you. Like, they thinking like, they giving me the ability to be able to get the tattoos I want now. Let me go ahead and get that vaccine because of the fact that they letting me get a tattoo.
Ouch. That's some Tom and Jerry shit. It don't have nothing to do with. Don't have nothing to do with it.
So then that makes me think, when it comes down to these organizations that are now losing out on personnel, these civilian organizations that are now losing out on personnel, these companies that are now losing out on personnel, it makes me think, okay, within a certain period of time, you're going to realize you're below the amount that you need to be able to get the job done, be able to accomplish the mission, be able to, sell products, be able to have a certain profit. What incentives are you now going to push out to try to
But
retain said personnel?
I'm sure they have it all under control. Don't they push out so many in certain ways every year? Whether it be not passing your test or
Well,
whatever. But
when it comes down to the military perspective, and this is something I think is more universal with any organization. It doesn't matter if it's military or not, you know, governmental companies, what may have you. They create policies to maintain the status quo, right? They create policies to make sure everything is at a baseline with being able to gain profit, right? So, with them creating those policies, they have to make sure you're able to retain a certain amount of people, you know? But then, if you're now creating policies stating everybody has to get a vaccination that they only have been doing a certain amount of study on within a shorter period of time, and now they realize, oh, let's say about half of their personnel is telling them, you know what, fuck it, I ain't taking that vaccine. Who are you to tell me I'm gonna put that thing in my body? You know, if they're saying that now, what are they going to do when it comes down to either being able to maintain the organization existing, being able to maintain the company existing? Because they have to get some profit. They have to do it within having a certain amount of numbers to be able to fill all specific, spots when it comes down to all the needs for the organization. You know, where now there are going to be certain incentives that are going to be pushed out. Give example. I'll give you one example. Back in 2010, and this was the funniest shit I've ever seen. Okay? Back in 2010 when they started pushing out, or 2020, my bad. 2020, when they started pushing out certain people being able to take the vaccination, when they started pushing out the vaccination. I don't remember which, version or, what company version that they pushed out first, but when they started pushing it out, right? They, in New York City, and I can't even make this up, and I thought this was the lowest of the low. They were pushing people to get the vaccination with the incentive of getting a bag of marijuana. Did y'all know this? I'm guessing y'all didn't because of the facial expressions. Yeah. So, they were pushing out giving dime bags to people as an incentive for them to be able to get the vaccine back in the 2020 in New York City. Let's be real about it. Most of the weed that they push now is synthetic anyway. It's not the natural stuff, Most people who end up growing the natural stuff, they end up growing in the house anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? But this legitimately happened in New York last year, where if you have last year then pushing an incentive for, people getting the vaccination with getting some synthetic weed, you also have people now this year within certain organizations being able to push them being able to have certain tattoos anywhere on their body, damn near. With trying to get them to, think of, oh, this organization has given me now, a little thing I wanted to have. So I might as well go ahead and give back by getting this vaccine and staying in and give them all, what they could get from me when it comes down to time. What more do you think they're going to do? What what more insults will they create in policy form? You know? What y'all think? What's on your minds? Nothing? Something? Anything?
Well, I mean, a lot jobs are, for example, my company, they increased the pay for a certain unit and not other units. So now we're dealing with that whole problem because they can't get enough people within the company. But that's a whole nother story for another day because there's a whole lot of problems within the field that I work in that need to be addressed. But that's part of the problem. They won't address it. It's been going on for eons. They won't address it. Now we went through the pandemic, and now you're trying to increase pay for one area when everybody needs the same increase of pay because the cost of living went up. So now you got people irate and mad and quitting because they pay didn't get increased, but you increased somebody else's pay. But people still aren't flooding into work because the job is hazardous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like companies, it's not just COVID, it's people realizing not only their worth, but not wanting to deal with it anymore. I mean, people, yes, you have to work to put food in your refrigerator and a roof over your head, but people are finding other ways to do that. Other companies are providing that outlet for you to earn income. People are finding other means to be able to survive. And that's what's the problem with this country that they were. Hold on.
Okay. Okay. So, what up? You got it? Got it, Kyrie? Okay, cool. All right.
So, companies and not companies, the CEOs of these companies were dependent on us not waking up and realizing this and not realizing how messed up things are because I'll be straightforward, I'm not for capitalism whatsoever because it's not. It doesn't work out for people like me. It works out for Bezos, it works out for Musk, but it don't work out for me. Why do I pay more than either one of them in taxes? That is mind-boggling within itself. Bezos has more money than he can ever spend in his lifetime. He needs, like, I think somebody calculated like 200 and some odd lifetimes to be able to spend all the money he's amassed. So it's not working out. They fed us this Kool-Aid. Some of us were smart enough to stop drinking it and realize this ain't the business.
True. You know, I think the pandemic has really shown people what their true worth is and has pushed for them to have more of an entrepreneurial spirit.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to chime in and say that,
Okay.
but go ahead because I feel like you about to say whatever else I was.
Well, I mean,
That is exactly what I was about to
if you
say.
already want to, piggyback on what I was saying, you know what I'm saying? You go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say that. Like I hear what Kyra's saying about it's not just COVID, and I agree. I don't think it's just COVID, but I do think, like Frank just said, COVID played a major role
Mm.
in showing people what their worth is, right? Showing people, and not even that, not even showing them what their worth is, showing them everything, giving them basic, sort of a snapshot of what your life could be if you took a different route. Yes, you were home with your kids, with your family. No, you weren't working.
Yeah.
Okay, but it gave you a break. I don't care what nobody say. For the people who did benefit, sorry, not benefit, but for the people who did or who were able to work from home, like myself, I teleworked.
Yeah.
Um, not the whole time, but most of the time I did, almost like 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for those people, for some of them, it gives you a bigger picture of why am I still doing the same thing I've been doing for all these years? I'm not happy with the job. The benefits aren't that great, right? Where I live, it's high. it's too many like cons. If your cons outweigh your pros, then it's time to just then kind of reevaluate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Take a different approach, right? Step back and really think about what you're doing. So I agree. I think that that's what the pandemic did for some people, not for everybody.
Right.
But as far as the entrepreneurial side of it, I definitely do think so. I think that some people finally said, "Okay, forget it." I think it's a combination of the entrepreneurial spirit and what Kyra said about people are finding other ways to get things done. That's what happened during the pandemic, and I think that's what we saw happen. And within the black community, I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there. Now, I will say that you had, single mothers or single parents or people who didn't have it before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so when the pandemic hit and all of these people who did have stable jobs and stable income now are put in a position where they may not anymore, at least temporarily.
Hmm.
They're lost. They're trying to figure out what to do. Where the people who were already there before the pandemic is like, bitch, I've been here for a long time.
Right. Right.
I've been here for a long time. I'm about to sit here and collect my check while you figure out what you're going to do with your life. And that's what, and so you had those people too, right? I think it just depends on where your life was when the pandemic hit, especially when um that whole thing happened with people when the lockdown hit.
Hmm.
I guess I should say, but I think that it did push people. As far as the resignation part of it, I mean, I agree with everything. I agree that people realize, people know. Here's my thing with the whole realize. I don't think that people just realizing that where they work is shitty. I don't think that people are realizing that they don't like their job. Look, you know what you like. Okay. You know if you're gonna like your job,
Yeah.
okay. Probably I know when I'm gonna like a job. Okay. The interview gives me a good take on who I'm reporting to, what type of person that is, and then when you get there, give yourself about a good, month. If you're not feeling it in a month and you decide to stay, you kind of have a forecast of what's going to happen. I'm just going to say that. I don't think that it gave them an opportunity to realize. I think it gave them the push to actually act on it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it put action into it.
Hmm.
So it kind of forced them to do it. So people, they resign for different reasons, like work life balance. Let me just say that the pandemic treated me. I mean that that the work from home option. I also worked for the government, so I get what Frank was saying. It was no joke. When I came down with COVID, I was told that the vaccination was a condition of employment.
Yeah.
It hadn't been, it wasn't during that time, but right when I got sick, it was. I know I wasn't told that I was going to lose my job, but if your employer comes to you and say, hey, if you're not vaccinated,
Yeah.
things could change.
Yeah.
Then you got to make a choice. My choice was to get vaccinated. Yes, I'm vaccinated. But like Lady D was saying, I could not afford to say, no, I'm not going to get vaccinated. Why? Because I need a job. At the end of the day, I have my. Let me tell you something. My rent man is not going to want a job. I am standing by my word as a black woman. I am not getting vaccinated. I am not taking Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson. He don't want to hear that. He want to see his money on the first of the month. That's what he want to see.
Right.
So you have to make a choice, and this kind of goes, but it probably goes back to our last discussion. But my choice was the best choice for. No, it was a choice that I had to make, and it was a choice that I made in the moment.
Hmm.
I still don't believe. I still think that you know I'm gonna just leave that alone. But people get back. I mean, people resign for different reasons,
Right.
and it's everything. It's people don't like their work, Employers don't reward or give recognition. Um, and then some employees give you, they give you grunt work, busy work.
Yeah.
That's not work. People want to feel valuable. You want to truly feel like a valuable asset when you do start working. And if you don't feel valuable, or if you don't feel appreciated in your workplace, like Kyra was kind of saying, y'all don't really need me here. So why not move on,
Hmm.
right? What was you
Now,
saying?
why not move on and move on to something that can be more beneficial, that ties more to what you would consider to be a passion?
That is a conversation that I have been having with Kyle for the last, I don't know how long. I am. People don't know how to do that. Sad to say, they don't know how to. First of all, they don't know what they want to do, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They don't know what they want to do. And then there's a fear of what if I can't do that? Or what if I don't have the experience? I don't have a degree. I don't have, listen, y'all don't need a degree for everything. They want you to get a degree because they want you to pay all that money to go get them degrees. When realistically, you can go out here. Kyra and I was just talking about this, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Hmm.
You can go get a trade, okay? You can go get, I don't know, a certificate, whatever you want to call it, but
You know
you don't
what?
necessarily need a degree.
You know what? So let me go ahead and speak on this because it's a good segue, right? I always talk about what is considered to be the knowledge triad. Okay, the knowledge triad. The knowledge triad consists of 3 points. One point is degrees. Another point is certifications, and trades are including on that when it comes down to certifications. And the last point is experience. You know, if you can feel those 3 points, you should be able to go anywhere and everywhere and be able to negotiate your price.
I do.
That's not true because most times people won't even look at you if you don't have a degree or somewhat fit the criteria that they asking for.
Key
That
word.
is true, but I also think that, so exclude those people out, right?
Hmm.
Process
Elimination.
of right.
Yeah.
For those people, if you know that it's an employer and they want you to have certain credentials and you don't have them and they won't budge on them, okay, they're gone. But you do have some people who will overlook it.
Yeah. They work with you.
You have some people that, I mean, that will overlook it. If you go into an interview with the mindset of this is my job. I mean seriously, this is my job. Take ownership. Know what you're worth. And I'm just saying what has worked for me. I'm speaking from personal experience at this point.
Right.
So it can happen, but you do have some people, and some employers that just won't hear you out. Like they don't really care. If you don't have a degree, then that's all they want. But here's the thing. I have worked in HR, so I'm trying to tread lightly on what I'm saying right now. But when you hire people, you can hire a person with a degree. I don't care what kind of degree it is, but if they got no experience in it, you're gonna end up having to take time and train that person.
Facts. Facts.
A person that got a whole master's and a PhD and whatever they're doing, not saying that they're not qualified for the position, but having a qualification with something and having experience in something
Experiencing
are
it.
not the
Two totally
same
different
thing.
things.
Not the same thing. And that's another reason why some employees will go with the people with degrees because they can pay them less. They don't have the experience. If I know that I have 20 years of experience in the food industry, you should know that I'm coming to my interview with all my experience. I'm giving you all I got. No, you can't pay me that, but you can pay me this. Somebody with a degree, they also know their worth, but they don't have the experience, so they don't really know what to ask for sometimes. They don't really know
True.
how processes go. They
Right.
never done it before.
Right.
So it just depends on on how you swing it.
And with saying that, talking about, the aspects of degrees, certifications, experience, right? Now, here's the flip side to it. Not everybody is going to hire you just because you have a degree. Not everybody is going to hire you just because you have a certification. Not everybody is going to hire you just because you have experience. You know, not everybody is going to hire you if you fulfill all 3 points. You know, and that's where the whole aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion comes in, where you don't even know what policies that they have written that are bylaws within the organization, to where, okay, if they say they are very diverse, if they say they have a sense of fairness when it comes down to equity, if they say they are inclusive, are they really following their policies, or do those policies even exist? You know what I'm saying?
I went to an interview. This was a few years ago, actually with my last position, and I'm not gonna disclose any names.
Mm-hmm.
But in the interview, it was a phone screening, and then and then the company asked me to come in and interview. I went into interview. The phone screening had went so well that I didn't know that they had already wanted me for the position
Yeah.
before I got there.
Yeah.
So when I got there, it was literally just a conversation. And then after the conversation, what the CEO told me was, "We need diversity here. Can you start April 1st or something like that?" I said, "Absolutely, I can." And they gave me what I asked for. What I asked for. I had no experience in the industry. I made that known. But I also made known what I did have experience in,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did let them know what I could offer.
Yeah.
So I think that that helped. And even if you have a degree, like for example, I've always wanted to work in social services. Kyra feels some way about different professions,
Okay.
different
Don't
professions.
do it. Don't do it.
Okay, that's y'all. That's
And
a
look,
whole nother.
and
Let me
look.
tell you though, that's a whole nother stuff. We talk about this all the time. But that is
All
something
right.
that I've always wanted to kind of do. I've always been a people person. I've 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 always been a helper. That's just my personality.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: it is extremely hard, at least on the East Coast. I can't speak for where Kyra is on the East Coast. It is hard to get into social services,
Mm-hmm.
into social work,
Yeah.
into those type of professions with a degree, with either a degree in that direct field or experience in that direct field. Even though you have a degree, they want you to have experience or a degree directly in social work, working with clients, working with families, working with the criminal justice system, working in case management, right?
Mm-hmm.
In facilitating. That was difficult. Now I got, 13, 14 years of experience in doing what I'm doing,
Right.
but do I have experience in that? Absolutely not. I don't.
Yeah.
So that's one of the, I think, so just because you have a degree, it doesn't always mean that that you're going to get picked either.
True. Now,
You know?
here's another thing to explore when it comes down to what is happening right now, when it comes down to the Great Resignation. Okay? Companies are going to end up losing employees. Organizations are going to they're going to lose employees. They're going to lose personnel. Now, since they are going to lose personnel, will the requirements for being hired be lowered? Because now all of a sudden, because they have made a decision to follow, making sure everybody ends up, oh, you need to get this vaccine, or oh, you're not going to be hired for whatever reason, what may have you, and now they're low on numbers. Will they now have to shift in now getting numbers up in a certain time frame when it comes down to having the organization or company continuing to exist? So now they have to lower their standards. What y'all think?
I think some companies will fold and some companies won't fold. You know, I think some companies will lower their standards and some companies may see this as an opportunity to revamp. So for those companies, beware. Because if they feel like they're already starting from scratch, then you're gonna have to prove yourself more on why they should hire you. But in that turn, you know, they also can't wait that long. They have a whole business to run. So they need you as much as you need that job.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, if you think about it like that.
Right, right, right.
So I'm kind of experiencing that right now because
Mm.
I am looking to leave the industry that I've been in for the last 10 plus years,
Okay.
and I'm in the midst of that. So it's for something that I've not had experience in, but in a way I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like certain companies are they're not. I wouldn't say this desperation, but it's like we need to find somebody with at least some type of qualifications to fill positions. And if you have something that mirrors what this position is for, we'll train you in the basics of what you need to know.
Right, right. Being able to have that opening for gaining employees that helps with retention. So you at least have a foundation or baseline to now be able to start anew from and now build back up when numbers were low at one time and need to be built up to where your organization still exists. It's not to the level that it was before because of changes that you needed to make, you know, when it comes down to, various reasons. I'll say one of the prominent reasons that most companies are, changing these policies as far as COVID, excuse me again, um, because of safety, you know, a lot of the reasons that are being used is, oh, we're doing this because of safety. We want everybody to, be vaccinated, but then also in turn, you want everybody to be vaccinated when it comes down to this, but then other aspects of your organization you completely ignore when it comes down to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You completely ignore those things, but you better go get your vaccine. You know what I'm saying? You know, where it's easier, and let's be real about it, it's easier to get rid of the mind that can make people think and to gain the mind that is not thinking about all the details of that comes with being a part of the organization, and they're only thinking about making, uh that check on the first and the 15th. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I was going to add, this probably be a little different from what you were saying, but one of the things that I thought about with companies in particular is I don't think that I think sometimes it's a matter of management also. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I think that some of these companies who are going through this resignation, era needs to relook or look at or review their I'm sorry, y'all. Their management team,
Mm-hmm.
their management style,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever protocol they're using, because I see, so because from what I've seen so far, in previous places I've worked and I've staffed, is that you have, you know, some managers, it kind of reminds me of a choir, and I can put it in this way.
Okay.
You have one director who's looking at a group of singers. They're all great singers. And then you have some that are not so great.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the director who don't know where to put who, right? He
Yeah.
don't recognize that Maggie can sing all the parts and that Becky can only sing one part. And
Mm-hmm.
he got them in different parts. It just don't make no sense. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Same thing in jobs. It's like, it's not that your workers can't perform. You need to recognize where talents can be performed best. That's your job as a manager. Put the overworked people in positions that they actually may feel comfortable with. It doesn't matter if they have 40 years of experience. They're over it. They've been there for 40 years.
40 years.
Put that new person who is like young, who has all this energy and who's starving for more work, have the older person train that person.
Right.
You
So,
know, you're underutilizing people that you actually have that can take on more work and that will appreciate it when you're overworking other people. And I'm just like, let me tell you. And that's how I feel about some of it. I mean, some of it is just management.
yeah, like the aspect of having the manager that has an understanding of collectivism, you know, and really having an understanding of collectivism, being a manager, or let's put it in this perspective, being a leader, you know, being the lead of something, the lead of a mission, the lead of, a common goal, you know, the lead of being able to, get a certain level of profit, whatever it is, whatever the mission is, right? Being able to understand interpersonal dynamics, you know, being able to have interpersonal intelligence, being able to understand people. You as a manager, you're able to walk into a room and within the first couple of minutes are able to understand a baseline detail of every single human being and how they are in that room. Then, through gaining that level of knowledge, are able to now, okay, let's just say one of the goals is putting certain groups together within, the group of people that you do have. And you need to, separate the group of people within four groups. Okay, which group of people are best able to work with one another? Can you do that as a manager? Can you be like, oh, so and so has this particular personality, but then also so and so has this experience. I know they will work well with so and so. You know, that's leadership. Like understanding the strengths, weaknesses, and neutral ground in mindset of every single individual worker that works for you. Difficult, but not impossible. Difficult, but
I
not
would
impossible. What you got? What you got next?
I was gonna say that I will also add some companies need to cut out this seniority this seniority, mindset that they got going. I work
What you
in
mean?
the government, y'all. So you got older government workers who've been in the government for a long time. Kind
45,
of like
50,
that
50 plus
lady who
years, you know what I'm
lives
saying?
in
They
your
just been
apartment
sitting,
building. She been living there all her life. She not going nowhere.
they sitting in
She
that
thinks she
spot.
own the
They've
property.
been in that
Okay, she
spot,
making sure you
growing
got in the
weeds
house.
on,
Okay, lady, you
just
live here like I do.
like their chair they've had for 50 years and they've been growing weeds
Okay, the
out the chair and
same chair,
everything.
the
And then,
same calculator.
like,
Don't move that stuff. The same plant been growing. Now it's over the other leg, and they still ain't got no office. They still have not been
the
promoted.
love
Let's
seat,
just put that one out there. They ain't been promoted to nothing.
the love
They
seat,
getting
the love seat in their office smell like Ben Gay. Like, they
okay
just, they,
for
they
real.
just been sitting there
They
for a
got well,
while.
they have been there, and some of them been in there so long they still wearing French rolls with the curls. Remember the government worker French roll with the curls? I don't know about y'all, but I remember that in DC. Like they used to wear, you would know government workers when they got on the train, especially the women. Like they always look nice, but you can tell how long they done been there, what pay
Right.
scale they going. They got all these rings on. Anyway, they have like this air of arrival about them, like, oh, I've been here the longest, and this and the third. And I feel like they are comfortable with where they are. They feel like they have reached the peak and they're just good. Like they're not going nowhere.
Maybe,
You
and
know.
I'm gonna put it in this perspective. Um, Maybe that sense of accomplishment, entitlement, or arrogance, whatever you want to call it. We could, do combination of the three, or be able to pinpoint, the details of, each one.
And
Maybe
they deserve it. So I shouldn't say that. So I don't want to say it in the sense of they don't deserve, whatever status they've reached. But then when you have new people come in, I feel like that they don't always take well to new people coming in.
the
You know what I
when you
mean?
don't when you don't have humility, I'll put it in this perspective. When you don't have humility, it doesn't foster an opening for helping others to grow within the environment. But then maybe the individual that has that sense of entitlement, arrogance, you know, uh, 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 lack of vision, lack of focus, when it comes down to being within their position for so long, maybe they don't even care about wanting to teach the next generations to come that will eventually replace them. Maybe
They don't do that.
it's maybe it's I only know this. So with me only knowing this, there is no more for me, so I can't see past when I eventually will retire. I can't see past that because I've only known for 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus years sitting in the seat that's growing, two weeds out of it that I haven't weed whacked. you know, maybe it's that. Because a lot of people, let's be real about it, people get complacent within their own entitlement and arrogance. People become complacent in that. And especially if no one ever has checked them in a professional way. Or they may have been checked in a professional way, but for that one individual, that act like what's the woman when it came down to the show Sanford and Son. What's the woman that Fred Sanford was always arguing with all the time? I think
Esther.
Esther.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
They
whatever.
got the
it's shy.
Esther.
Boo.
They got the Esther personality. You know what I'm saying? Like they just all over the place when it comes down to saying anything and everything they want to say. You know, but they've never had that one day where that one they end up meeting that one, whoever that one is. That one could be probably, you know, 25, 30 years their junior.
Let me tell you what I think that their biggest, fear is change. Change. It's change. Because it's like after you've been doing something for so long and you got somebody coming in, trying to change things and change processes and look for ways to improve, but it impacts when you've been doing it for 30 years and what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a huge conversation because you have some employers that will, even if they like the the, the idea of changing some things, if they know that Mary that been here for 30 something years, she's a reliable worker, she comes to work on time, she knows her job, she's there. I don't, maybe they don't change just yet.
Hmm.
At that point, you're working around her and she knows that.
Yeah.
And that's something that's also very real.
The
And in some businesses.
the biggest thing that I always say, and I'm gonna continue to say it till the day I kick the bucket, whenever that day will happen. Change is inevitable. It's gonna happen whether you like it or not. For you to be understanding, embracing, and in the flow of change, you must understand resiliency. You must understand resiliency, right? Because a lot of old people, let's be real about it, like, we got the, old family members that, what I'm saying, they, at one time, they understood what a 8-track was, and they got a whole box of 8 tracks, a box of it in the attic, in the house and everything, and they ain't getting rid of those things, but then all of a sudden, one of the youth within the family ended up showing them a CD, and they like, what the hell is that? That family member is that coworker that can't comprehend this is how you really use a computer. I didn't know you could do this on a computer. Like, you know what I'm saying? What you got? What you got?
Okay, I was at Howard University singing, because I used to sing there on Sunday, and the dean basically told this story. And he said that when he was younger, he used to hang out with these group of friends.
Yeah.
Okay, and he used to think that these friends were the coolest friends, and like these were his boys.
Yeah.
Anyway, they would get together and listen to jazz music. So that was
Yeah.
their thing, was
Jazz back in
jazz.
the day was like how hip hop is today. But yeah, go ahead.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So he said one day he went into a record store. No, he was walking down DuPont Circle, and those who from DC know that DuPont Circle used to have this music store. I forget what the name of it was,
I know what you're
but
talking
they
about.
used to play music.
I know.
They
I
used
know
to
what
play
you're talking.
music,
Yeah. Yeah. Go.
and he said he heard a song from the music store. And he went inside to see what song it was, and the guy who was playing it basically said, "Oh, this is new." He said, "It's not out just yet. It was a, it hadn't been released just yet, I guess, but he had a copy of it."
Okay.
And the dean
He
said
had a,
that
he
he
had a
bought
sample.
it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He bought it and he took it to his friends to play it. He said he was so excited because he was hoping that they would like this song like he liked it. Turns out they was like, "No, man, I don't like that. Turn that off. Put back on some jazz." Long story short, he regretted take. He took it back to the music store in DuPont Circle and returned it for his money back.
Mm.
Long story short, after that, some years later, it turned out to be Marvin Gaye's song, "What's Going On." And he was like, because how I take that is because his friends wouldn't even give the time of day to a new idea or to a new type of music. They totally missed out on being able to hear something that is it's a treasure now to a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, let me
What's going on talked about a lot of stuff.
facts. Let me
You know?
let me shift it back into the aspect because we're kind of up on time. Let me shift it back into the aspect of the resignation piece, right? So, how often? Yeah, go ahead and laugh, Nat. I don't give a shit. How often? How often? Um, do you have these different policies that have been created for organizations for a certain period of time, or you have the new implementation of new policies that are now being put in policy because of a change that is a perceived change that people think that is needed, right? Based on what's happening in the world, where you have those old policies and then the pushing of new policies without as much data for people to study. you know it's more so, oh, we just doing what they doing, right? How often does that happen when it comes down to people just filling in, the belief of just understanding the old policies, where policies may need to change over time because, times change. You know what I mean? Like, nothing really ever remains the exact same. Things can definitely remain the same when it comes down to, you know, us repeating history, and that's one big thing that I think also, I think we should have, as an episode when it comes down to the aspect of talking about history, and how history does affect us now, and how we end up repeating it, what may have you. But, we could probably do that later on. But nevertheless, how often do you have policies that have never been changed over a course of time that prevents organizations and companies for being able to have a certain retention rate when it comes down to personnel that they need to have to be able to work toward their mission? How often do you think that happens? You know? What y'all think? Anything?
Never, because people are afraid of implementing new policies.
Mm,
New policies mean like like we were just saying, change. And if you have workers that are not receptive to something new, that's a losing battle. It's a losing battle because what's going to happen is that, let's just say you implement those new processes anyway,
mm-hmm.
right? Now your workers have no choice but to submit and do it. It's their job. They can't eat, right?
Right.
But then if they don't like it, they're just going to resign eventually.
Of course. Of
And
course.
that brings us back to the whole cycle of resigning, why they're resigning because you're changing stuff and they don't like
Right.
it. But then where there's a resignation, there's also a hire. So let's not forget about that.
Where there's a resignation, definitely. Where there's a resignation, there's also a
Yeah.
hire. But then also, when it comes down to government, you got
That's-
people that's been in a position for so long.
They ain't going nowhere. It's like that house on the block that you've been wanting since a kid, and it ain't never get on the market. Ain't never. You know why? Because Bobo's family then had that house in their family for years. That house ain't going nowhere. It ain't going. You're not ever get that house again. I'm talking about that house I want in LaJoy Park, by the way, but whatever. In LaJoy Park by Howard University, right? Because somebody's rich parents own that house.
Right.
That's what we talk about generational wealth. Also, is that you know
All right.
it's kind of
All right. Well.
they're not acceptive of it.
All right. Well, we going go ahead and call it a day. Call it an episode. Gonna cut it right here. But one final thought. When it comes down to resignation, everything. It's it's difficult to be in a society and have a mindset of thinking that changes will not happen, and those changes that are not going to happen are more so changes that are going to stay stagnant and that will convenience you. You know, like that's unrealistic. That's in my personal opinion. I think that's just complete idiocy. Stupid to think that way. Changes always happen. It's going to happen. It's just you being able to understand why the changes are happening and being privy to understand the learning curve when it comes down to being privy to those changes. You know, if you don't understand that change is inevitable, you're going to be one of the ones where you're going to be sitting, thinking of 8-track player, right? And everybody is thinking of streaming. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's thinking of streaming, you know?
Pretty much, I agree. I'm still in awe about how many companies are still using paper. That could
Facts.
be another topic,
True.
but that's a whole nother. I don't know what the paper thing is about. Somebody asked me for a calculator yesterday. I said, "Do you not have Excel?
What? Right.
Do
You
you
know,
not use Google Sheets
a
at
lot of
the
people like
least?"
a lot of
Seriously, I
people don't
just
even. You still have people this day and age in 2021 who don't even know how to send an email.
okay. That got to be next time because I can go on and on about
Look, I
that.
mean, we can have a episode when it comes down to computer literacy, all that other stuff. But nevertheless, I'm Frank, Real Raw Exchange Podcast. We done did this episode, got this knocked out. All right, y'all take it easy and have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.